Scattered across the interstellar space between stars are vast clouds of gas and dust known as molecular clouds. Radio telescope observations have revealed that these clouds contain a surprisingly variety of organic compounds. Among the most notable detections are alcohols and other organic molecules, including ethanol and ethyl formate. In the molecular cloud known as Sagittarius B, ethyl formate has been identified, a compound that, when analyzed on Earth, is found to carry an aroma resembling rum and raspberries. There is no way to smell space directly, of course, but laboratory analysis of the detected compound yields those particular sense characteristics. The presence of organic molecules in interstellar space lends support to the idea that the chemical building blocks of life are distributed widely throughout the universe. The notion that somewhere in the vastness of space there drifts a compound that smells like rum is one of those facts that makes the cosmos feel unexpectedly close. That the invisible matter between the stars contains an entire world of organic chemistry is a reminder of just how chemically rich the universe truly is. Finland calculates traffic fines in a way that sets it apart from most other countries. For minor violations such as speeding, the penalty is determined not by a fixed rate, but the offender's recent income. Known as the day fine system, it works by taking a person's daily earnings as the baseline and multiplying it by a number of days proportional to the severity of the offense. The goal is to address a fundamental equity in fixed-rate systems. A flat fine is a serious hardship for a low-income person, but barely noticeable for someone wealthy. Under this model, higher earners pay more for the same infraction. In practice, Finnish cases in which affluent business people were fined the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of yen or more have made international news on more common than one occasion. Similar systems have been adopted in Sweden, Switzerland, and a handful of other European countries. The question of how to define fairness in punishment makes this approach philosophically interesting well beyond its practical mechanics. As an attempt to embed social equity directly into law, the day fine system is one of the more thought-provoking examples of legal philosophy in action. Ancient Greek is celebrated as the birthplace of democracy, but its methods of voting and civic participation looked at very different from anything we practice today. One of the most distinctive institutions was a process known as ostracism. Practiced in Athens, it allowed citizens to vote to exile any individual deemed a potential threat to democratic rule for a fixed period, typically 10 years. The voting instrument was a shard of pottery, an ostracan, on which citizens scratched the name of the person they wished to banish. It is from this word that the English term ostracism derives. Stones and shells were also used as voting tokens in some records, and citizens who could not write were sometimes assisted by others who inscribed the names on their behalf. Though the system was designed to prevent dangerous concentrations of power, it was frequently exploited for political vendettas and was eventually abandoned. The outward form could hardly be more different from a modern election, but the core democratic principle, direct civic participation in governance, remains recognizable across the centuries. The image of a daily piece of broken pottery serving as a political instrument brings the origins of democracy to life in a remarkably concrete way. Sharks have a remarkable capacity to regenerate teeth that most animals, including humans, can only envy. Where human teeth go through a single replacement cycle, from baby teeth to permanent ones, sharks practice what biologists call polyphyodonty. Throughout their lives, lost teeth are continuously replaced by new ones. A shark's jaw holds multiple rows of teeth, with rear rows advancing forward to fill the gaps left by shed front teeth. Depending on the species, sharks replace their teeth every few weeks to a few months, and over a lifetime are estimated to use anywhere from several thousand to more than 30,000 teeth. Because of this prolific renewal, shark teeth are found in abundance on the ocean floor and are frequently collected as fossils or specimens. The regenerative mechanism itself has attracted significant medical interest, with researchers exploring whether similar biological processes could one day be applied to human dental regeneration. The ability to replace teeth indefinitely over a lifetime is one of the more quietly extraordinary traits that sharks have carried with them through millions of years of evolution. Mount Everest is known today as the world's highest peak at approximately 8,849 meters above sea level. But that figure is not fixed. The Himalayas, where Everest stands, were formed by the ongoing collision of the Indian and Eurasian tectonic plates, and those plates continue to move. The pressure generated by this collision causes the crust to rise, and Everest is believed to be gaining several millimeters of elevation each year as a result. At the same time, weathering and erosion gradually wear the surface down, so the net change depends on the balance between uplift and erosion. In 2020, a joint survey by China and Nepal produced the most recent official measurement, revising the previously accepted figure by a small amount. The measurement itself relies on advanced technology, including satellite positioning systems and precision gravity measurement. The fact that even the height of the world's tallest mountain is in constant flux is a vivid reminder that the Earth is a dynamic living system, still reshaping itself beneath our feet. Brazil has regions where roads have been deliberately excluded, and communities have chosen to preserve a way of life accessible only on foot or by bicycle. One well-known example is a small island in the state of Parana, where motor vehicles are banned and the pace of daily life reflects that choice. The motivations behind such places typically involve protecting natural environments and landscape, as well as maintaining the character of a local community. Without roads and cars, there is no traffic noise, no exhaust, just a slower, quieter rhythm of living. These places have attracted attention as tourist destinations, drawing visitors who seek refuge from the commotion of urban life. The concept of a car-free island has also gained traction in discussions of urban planning and environmental policy as a counterpoint to car-dependent development. That a way of life characterized by gentle coexistence between people and nature can still exist in the modern world. It's a meaningful reminder of the diversity of choices available to us in how we live. Machu Picchu, the Inca city nestled in the Peruvian Andes, is believed to have been built in the 15th century, continues to astonish modern researchers with the precision of its stone construction. The walls were built using a technique known as ashlar masonry, no mortar or adhesive of any kind. Each stone was shaped with such exactness that the joints between them are famously described as too tight to slide a razor blade through. This precision gives the structure remarkable resistance to the earthquakes that frequently strike the Andes. During a tremor, the stones are said to shift slightly against one another, absorbing the energy of the quake, then settle back into position, a property that has drawn serious interest from contemporary earthquake engineers. The granite blocks are used in construction, sometimes weigh several tons, and how they were transported to the mountaintop using the technology available at the time remains one of Machu Picchu's enduring mysteries. Stonework that tolerates no gaps between its pieces stands as a testament to the extraordinary technical sophistication of Inca civilization. Medieval knights in full plate armor are often imagined, thanks to films and video games, as slow and cumbersome figures barely able to move. In reality, a complete set of European plate armor typically weighed somewhere between 15 and 25 kilograms. For comparison, the total load carried by a modern soldier in combat, body armor, helmet, weapons, ammunition, and supplies, can easily exceed 20 to 30 kilograms. In terms of sheer weight, the medieval knight and the modern soldier are not so far apart. Plate armor was also engineered to distribute weight across the body, and a trained knight in well-fitted armor could reportedly run and mount a horse without a significant difficulty. The armorers of the period applied considerable skill to designing gear that accommodated freedom of movement, a level of craftsmanship that was genuinely advanced for its time. Materials and form have changed dramatically over the centuries, but the physical burden a combatant must carry to protect themselves has remained surprisingly constant. That consistency speaks to something fundamental and unchanged about the demands of warfare. The national anthem of Greece, known as the Hymn to Liberty, holds the distinction of being the longest national anthem in the world, with lyrics extending to 158 verses. The words were written by the 19th century Greek poet Dionysios Solomos, based on a lengthy poem he published in 1823. The poem was born of the period when Greece was fighting for independence from the Ottoman Empire, and it gives voice to an intense longing for freedom and a fierce sense of national pride. In practice, only the two first verses are performed at official ceremonies and public events. Singing all 158 would take a considerable amount of time, so an abbreviated version is standard. The music was composed by Nicholas Matsaros, and the melody is bold and memorable. Taking it its entirety, the poem reads less like a conventional national anthem and more like a national epic chronicling the history, the struggles of a people fighting to reclaim their independence. The sheer existence of 158 verses of lyrics speaks to the depth of the Greek commitment to that struggle and to a deep cultural reverence for poetry as a vehicle for national identity. In ancient Egypt, cats occupied a position of exceptional reverence. The goddess Bastet, depicted in feline form, was widely worshipped, and cats were regarded as sacred guardians of the household. Within this cultural framework, it was reportedly customary for an entire family to shave their eyebrows when a pet cat died, as an expression of mourning. In ancient Egypt, shaving the eyebrows was a powerful act signifying deep grief and loss. The practicing of altering one's physical appearance to mark bereavement is found in various ancient cultures, but the solemnity with which Egyptians mourned the death of a cat was distinctive even by the standards of the world. It was also said that anyone who deliberately killed a cat, even accidentally, could be put to death under Egyptian law. The large number of cat mummies that have been discovered further attest to how profoundly sacred these animals were. Cats remained beloved pets across the world today, but the fact that there was a time when they were treated with this degree of religious and cultural weight speaks to the long and layered history of the relationship between humans and cats. Cashews are a familiar snack and ingredient in cuisines around the world, but the way they grow is unlike almost any other nut. The cashew tree first produces what is known as the cashew apple, a soft pear-shaped fruit in shades of red or yellow. This is a false fruit, edible but highly perishable, and virtually never found outside the regions where cashews are grown. The nut we actually eat grows outside the cashew apple, protruding from its base in a gray kidney-shaped shell. Each fruit produces exactly one nut, which is one of the reasons cashews are more expensive to produce than most other nuts. Between the layers of the shell lies a toxic resin called urushiol, the same compound found in poison ivy, which can cause severe skin inflammation on contact. Each cashew must therefore be heat treated to harvest to neutralize the toxin before it can be safely consumed. The unusual way cashews grow, visibly hanging from the outside of the fruit, and the necessity of processing before eating together tell the story of considerable effort behind what appears on your plate. Vatican City, the world's smallest independent state, sits within the city of Rome and has a culture and set of institutions entirely on its own. One of its more charming peculiarities is that the ATMs inside its wall offer Latin as a language option. Latin, the language of the Roman Empire, is no longer spoken in daily life anywhere in the world, but it retains its status in an official language of the Catholic Church. The Vatican is home to a community of clergy and scholars with a working knowledge of Latin, and the language option on its ATMs reflect both the practical needs of that environment and a gesture of respect for tradition. In a world where Latin has all but disappeared from everyday use, the sight of a thoroughly modern machine offering to guide you through a transaction in a language that has been considered dead for centuries captures something essential about what makes the Vatican unlike anywhere else on earth. As perhaps the only place where a so-called dead language remains genuinely functional, the Vatican occupies a singular position in the world. Iceland is a North Atlantic island nation known for its volcanoes, hot springs, and dramatic landscapes, and it is one of the very few places on Earth with no mosquitoes. The reason lies in the particular character of the Icelandic climate. Mosquitoes require a sustained period of stable warmth and standing water to complete their development from egg to adult. Iceland's weather is notoriously unpredictable. Even in summer, temperatures rise and fall erratically, preventing the stable conditions mosquitoes' larvae need to mature. The repeated freezing and thawing of the ground also makes it difficult for suitable pools of still water to form and persist. While other cold climate regions, such as Greenland and neighboring islands, have very few mosquitoes, the near total absence found in Iceland is unusual even by those standards. From a public health perspective, the absence of mosquitoes is an advantage, as mosquitoes are significant vectors of infectious diseases. At the same time, mosquitoes play roles in ecosystems as pollinators and as a food source for other animals, and their absence may have subtle effect on certain ecological balances. The existence of a country entirely without one of the most universally familiar insects is a striking illustration of how closely climate and ecosystem are intertwined. In the microgravity environment of space, the constant compression that gravity exerts on the human spine on Earth is essentially absent. On the ground, the intervertebral discs, the cushioning structures between the vertebrae, are perpetually squeezed. In space, that pressure is relieved, allowing the discs to expand and the spine to lengthen. Astronauts have been documented growing between 2 and 5 centimeters taller during extended stays in space, with records from long-duration missions abroad, the International Space Station confirming measurable increase in height before return to Earth. The change is temporary. Once back under gravity, the spine compresses again and height returns to normal within days to weeks. However, the rapid elongation of the spine during spaceflight is not without consequences. Back pain is among the most commonly reported complaints among astronauts in orbit, and the discomfort can also arise as the spine readjusts upon return. Research in space medicine continues to focus on minimizing the impact of these spiral changes on astronauts undertaking long-duration missions. The fact that simply removing the gravitational force we take entirely for granted produces such significant changes in the human body is a powerful reminder of how deeply adapted we are to life on Earth. The Amazon rainforest is the largest tropical forest on Earth, often called the lungs of the planet, and part of what sustains this vast ecosystem comes from a source thousands of miles away, the Sahara Desert. The sands of the Sahara are rich in minerals including phosphorus and iron, which are essential for plant growth. Lifted from the desert surface by wind, these particles travel on the trade winds across the Atlantic Ocean and eventually reach South America. Satellite observations by NASA estimate that approximately 27 million tons of Saharan dust arrive in the Amazon basin each year. This matters because typical rainforest soils are easily leached by nutrients by heavy rainfall, leaving many areas unable to support dense forests on their own over the long term. The minerals carried in Saharan dust help replenish what the rain washes away. The connection between a desert and a rainforest, two ecosystems that could hardly appear more different, mediated by nothing more than wind and dust, is one of the clearest illustrations of the fact that the Earth functions as a single, interconnected system. The golden arches of McDonald's are among the most recognized logos in the world, and most people naturally assume the M stands for McDonald's. In fact, the shape did not originate as a letter at all. It came from architecture. During the 1950s and 1960s, McDonald's restaurants across the United States were built with large arches on either side of the building, designed to be visible from a distance and serve as a landmark. Viewed from the front, the two arches together resembled the letter M, and over time, this architectural feature evolved into the Golden Arches logo. In the 1960s, designer Jim Schindler formalized the shape into something close to the logo used today. McDonald's still uses the name Golden Arches officially, as the story of a building's design becoming the identity of a global brand is one of the more intriguing case studies in the story of marketing. What began as a structural element intended to draw drivers in the front of the road ended up becoming one of the most instantly recognizable systems on the planet. On the Oregon coast in the United States, the Dee River, officially listed in the Guinness World Records as one of the shortest rivers in the world, measures just approximately 37 meters in length, a distance an adult could walk in under a minute. It flows from Devil's Lake into the Pacific Ocean, and because it has both a clearly defined source and a mouth, it qualifies as a river by standard geographical criteria. In some stretches, the river is actually wider than it is long. It has become a local attraction with a sign marking its status, and visitors regularly stop to see it. Definitions of what constitutes a river vary among researchers and institutions, so the title of the shortest river is occasionally disputed. But there is little question that the Dee River belongs to an extremely short category of its own. The fact that a body of water just 37 meters long can hold the official designation of river is a reminder of how interesting geographical definitions can be, and of how the natural world does not always conform to our intuitions. The ice sheet covering Antarctica formed over vast spans of time as snow accumulated, and was compressed into ice layer by layer. During that process, air from the atmosphere at the time of each snowfall became trapped as tiny bubbles within the ice. Those bubbles preserve the composition of the ancient atmosphere almost exactly as it was, making them an invaluable archive to Earth's past environment. The ice sheet is extraordinarily deep, and in its lower layers, air more than 1 million years old have been confirmed. Scientists extract cylindrical samples known as ice cores to analyze the bubbles layer by layer, reconstructing past concentrations of carbon dioxide and tracing changes in temperature over geological time. This research has revealed that Earth's temperature and atmospheric carbon dioxide levels have risen and fallen in close correlation throughout history, providing crucial evidence for understanding the dynamics of current climate change. Antarctica's ice is, in fact, the planet's memory. The deeper you drill, the further back in time you can read. The ability to directly analyze air from more than 1 million years ago is a testament to the extraordinary timescales that Earth science is capable of addressing. Pigs are widely imagined as overweight animals, but the reality is more nuanced. The body fat percentage of a mature pig raised for meat typically falls somewhere around 15%, depending on the breed and how it was raised. That figure is roughly comparable to the body fat of elite endurance athletes such as marathon runners, and is noticeably lower than the average for adult men in the general population. The impression of fatness comes from the pig's rounded silhouette and loose skin, which is a product of muscle mass distribution, skeletal structure, and the way subcutaneous fat is arranged, not necessarily a reflection of overall body fat. In commercial pig farming, diet and exercise are carefully managed to control body composition, with the goal of maintaining muscle mass for high-quality meat production. As with humans, body shape and body fat percentage do not always correspond. The fact that an animal so commonly associated with being overweight has a body fat percentage on par with a competitive athlete is a satisfying example of how appearances can mislead. The computer mouse is an indispensable input device today, but its origins go back to the 1960s. The first mouse was conceived by American inventor Douglas Engelbart, with a working prototype compiled in 1964. That early device looked nothing like a modern mouse. It had a wooden box-shaped body with two wheels mounted perpendicular to each other on the underside. The choice of wood was practical rather than aesthetic, reflecting the materials and manufacturing methods available at the time. Engelbart designed the device as a pointing tool for moving a cursor around a computer screen, and it was initially referred to simply as a position indicator. The nickname mouse came later. The cable emerging from the back resembled a tail. The wooden mouse made its public debut at a computer technology demonstration in San Francisco in 1968, where it attracted considerable attention. The journey from a small wooden box to the defining input device of the personal computing era is a reminder that the most consequential inventions sometimes have the most unassuming beginnings. The human heart is a muscle that beats without pause for an entire lifetime. In a resting adult, the heart beats between 60 and 100 times per minute. Over an average lifespan, that adds up to somewhere between 2.5 and 3 billion beats in total. Roughly 100,000 per day, or about 30-60 million per year. Through all of that, the heart functions as one of the very few organs in the body that operates essentially without maintenance. Cardiac muscle, known as the myocardium, is a specialized tissue that does not fatigue the way skeletal muscle does, and it beats to its own rhythm anonymously. The rhythm is governed by a cluster of specialized cells called the sinoatrial node, which means that the heart can continue beating even without instructions from the brain. In athletes, the heart becomes more efficient at pumping blood, resulting in a lower resting heart rate. The same number of beats delivers more blood per stroke. 3 billion beats over a lifetime is a figure that captures both the extraordinary durability of the heart and the quiet, relentlessness force that sustains everything we do. In a standard deck of playing cards, each suit includes a jack, queen, and king. each depicted in their own distinctive design. Looking at the four queens, the queens of spades, diamonds, and clubs are typically shown holding objects associated with power or authority. A sword, a scepter, or similar items, while the Queen of Hearts alone is shown empty-handed. One theory behind this design difference is that the court cards were modeled on historical figures from medieval Europe. The Queen of Hearts has been linked variously to a favorite of the French King Charles VII and to a saintly figure, but scholars have not reached a consensus on who, if anyone, she represents. Another interpretation holds that the unarmed Queen of Hearts was deliberately designed as a symbol of love and peace. Playing card designs have varied considerably across regions and eras, so the feature does not appear in every version, but it is present in most standard decks. If you have a deck to hand, laying the four queens side by side makes the difference immediately apparent. Saffron is one of the most expensive spices in the world, sometimes compared in price per gram to gold itself. The reason lies in the extraordinary labor involved in its production. Saffron comes from the flower of Crocus sativus, but only the three stigmas at the center of each bloom are used. These are extraordinarily delicate, and a single flower yields only about 0.03 grams. To produce a single gram of saffron requires upward of 150 to 200 flowers. The harvest window is limited to just a few days when the flowers are in bloom, and the stigmas must be picked up by hand in the morning immediately after the flowers open. The main producing countries are Iran, Spain, and India, with Iran accounting for the largest share of the global output. In the kitchen, saffron lends its distinctive golden color and fragrance to dishes such as paella, risotto, and various soups and stews. It has also been used as a dye throughout history, with references appearing as ancient texts. Saffron's extraordinary value is ultimately a product of nature's constraints and human labor working together. And that combination is unlikely to change. The Belt House in the clock tower of the Palace of Westminster in London, known as Big Ben, is one of the most famous timekeeping sounds in the world. The BBC has broadcast the chimes of Big Ben on the radio at the top of each hour since 1923. Making it one of the longest-running audio transitions in British broadcasting. The sound is especially associated with New Year's Eve, when Big Ben's chimes ring in the New Year's in broadcasts carried around the world. The bell fell silent for several years beginning in 2017, while the clock tower underwent restoration works. during which time a recording was used in its place. Since the restoration, the real bell has resumed its role. The name Big Ben technically refers to the bell itself, while the tower has an unofficial name, Elizabeth Tower. The fact that a sound of a single bell has been transmitted by radio to listeners across the globe for nearly a century is a striking demonstration of how a sound can become an international symbol. The sun appears from Earth as a disk of light in the sky, but its actual scale defies easy comprehension. With a diameter of approximately 1.39 million kilometers, it is roughly 109 times wider than Earth, meaning you could line up about 109 Earths in a row from one edge of the sun to another. In terms of volume, more than 1.3 million Earths would fit inside it. Despite this immensity, the sun's distance of 150 million kilometers from Earth makes it appear relatively modest in the sky. The sun accounts for approximately 99.86% of the total mass of the solar system, dwarfing the combined mass of all the planets, moons, and asteroids put together. It is composed primarily of hydrogen and helium, and at its core, nuclear fusion reacts releases enormous quantities of energy. That fusion is the source of the sun's light and heat, and by extension, the source of energy for virtually all life on Earth. The sun is something we see every day, yet when its scale is laid out in numbers, the smallness of our planet in the context of even our own solar system becomes hard to ignore. Human skin is in a constant state of renewal, with old cells shedding and new ones taking their place in an unending cycle. Each day, roughly 30,000 to 40,000 skin cells are shed, equivalent to about 1,000 to 500 cells per hour. These flakes are too fine to see with the naked eye, but much of the dust that accumulates indoors is in fact composed of shed human skin. The outermost layer of skin, the epidermis, is continuously generated from the base layer upward. New cells form at the bottom, migrate towards the surface, gradually harden, and are eventually shed as dead skin. This full cycle takes approximately 28 days and is commonly referred to as skin turnover. When the process functions, normally, skin remains healthy and renews itself efficiently. Disruptions caused by aging, stress, or dryness can result in rough skin or uneven pigmentation. Shed skin cells are also a primarily food source for dust mites, which makes the cycle directly relevant to the cleanliness of bedding and indoor environments. It is by this constant, indivisible process of replacement, tens of thousands of cells lost every single day, that human skin maintains its freshness. The idea that the inside of a banana peel can whiten teeth has circulated widely as a home remedy. The inner surface of banana peel contains minerals including manganese, potassium, and magnesium, as well as salicylic acid, and the theory holds that gently rubbing these compounds against the tooth surface can help lift surface stains. The method typically involves rubbing the white inner side of a ripe peel against the teeth for about 2 minutes before brushing as normal. However, the scientific evidence supporting this approach is limited. There is a lack of rigorous clinical research on its effectiveness, and opinions among dental professionals are divided. Tooth discoloration from coffee, tea, and red wine results from polyphenols binding to tooth enamel, and whether the physical action of banana peel is sufficient to remove such staining has not been clearly established. Comparative studies against commercial whitening products are also scarce. The general consensus is that the method carries a low risk of harm and is not unreasonable to try, but expectations of dramatic whitening results should be modest. It sits in an interesting space between folk remedy and something science has not yet fully examined. Individual strands of human hair are fine and light, but their tensile strength is surprisingly high. A single healthy hair can reportedly support approximately 100 grams of weight. The average adult head carries between 100,000 and 150,000 hairs, and if the strength of every strand were added together, the theoretical total would come to somewhere between 10 and 15 tons. Hair is made primarily of keratin, a fibrous protein whose bundled structure gives it considerable tensile strength. Keratin is also found in nails, feathers, and hooves, and is recognized as one of the most durable biological materials. That said, these figures are theoretical. In practice, hair does not gather a single point to share a load evenly, so no real-world scenario approaches that limit. Hair condition also plays a major role. Bleaching and excessive chemical treatment break down the keratin structure and significantly reduce strength. The fact that something as seemingly delicate as a strand of hair is built from such robust material is a reminder that the human body, even its finest details, is engineered with more sophistication than it appears.